Welcome to the Dubcast with Dubside. This is a special guest edition of the Dubcast. I'm going to talk to Kenneth Høegh, who is the top diplomat from Greenland working in the U.S. And we talk about such topics as Inuit identity, Greenland achieving nationhood, and the history of that going back to 1953, land ownership, how that works in Greenland, differences with the criminal justice system, seafood exports, sealskin exports, the Marine Mammal Protection Act, climate change and how that affects Inuit people, the Greenland kayak, and tourism in Greenland. This interview goes for slightly less than 1 hour. I'm talking to Kenneth Høegh. Now, have I got that last name right? Høegh?
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh,
that's fine.
All right. It's a letter we don't have in the English language, so it's confusing to us. You say your name for me.
Kenneth Høegh.
Høegh. Right.
Høegh. Yeah.
And your title is, it's the Minister...
Plenipotentiary.
Plenipotentiary.
Yeah, but I usually just use the title Head of Representation.
Head of Representation,
yeah.
for Greenland.
For Greenland.
In the
yes.
U.S.
Yes, and Canada.
And Canada. Uh-huh. All right. And how long have you been in this position?
Well, soon 2.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on behalf of the Americans interested in traditional kayaking,
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to welcome you here. I'm sorry that we didn't connect a little sooner. Right? But we have, the Kayak USA has a membership of, centers around 200 or so people in this country who we, for many years now, have been actively involved in Greenland kayaking things and interfacing with Kanakatufiat in Greenland. And so I'm really anxious to connect more with all that you're doing in your position, and so we can just be on the same page.
I just find it so positive and enormously inspiring that there is organization in this country working with the traditional culture of Greenland. I love it.
Right.
I'm so happy.
All right, that's good.
It's so beautiful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. So describe for our listeners here, your duties and your position here.
Well, I'm the representative of the government of Greenland. Greenland is an autonomous country within the Kingdom of Denmark.
Okay. I'm
having my office here at the Danish Embassy. We have a section which is the Greenland representation.
Okay.
And we are 4 people. It's very few, and we are covering everything, you could say, that there is between the US and Greenland.
Okay.
So it's not boring at all, I can tell you.
So as I understand that involves, there's trade, there's culture, there's security, there's all these different things.
Yeah. Science and research. Yeah. And education. So yes, the thing is, Greenland has taken over the jurisdiction of a number of issues from the Danish government. All the way back in 1979, this process started, when we were granted home rule. And since then, we have slowly taken over competence, jurisdiction of a number of issues. And today, we are covering, by the government of Greenland, most issues that you can touch, smell, and breathe in Greenland, almost. Right. It's most. Our autonomy is very extended, extensive. We have a number of areas where we, as I say, have the full jurisdiction. Where it's our own parliament who is doing all the legislation, where We have our own laws and bylaws and so on, where we are totally regulating our own life. So
Right.
there is though still a number of issues that is within the kingdom where we work together with the Danish government. That's very much to do with military and security. So that's more like a trilateral thing, where it's Greenland, Denmark, and the US. So Greenland, Denmark being the Kingdom of Denmark together with the US. While all these areas of competence where it's our full jurisdiction, then it's a bilateral thing between Greenland, the government of Greenland, and the government of US.
All right. So give me an example in your day-to-day, like what recently came up involving something that was...
Well, I just had a meeting. I shouldn't go too much in detail, but I just
what you can tell.
Yeah, I just had a meeting on education.
Okay.
Cooperation in terms of the education. A certain American university trying to establish a broader cooperation with Greenlandic educational institutions, universities.
So this would involving having Greenland students come to there, or just their curriculum for anybody they're teaching, or
both ways. I mean,
okay.
Greenlanders coming here to the US and Americans coming to Greenland. So for studying. So
Okay.
so that's we're looking into the possibilities of that kind of cooperation, but it's all kinds of stuff. It's also within there is becoming a stronger link also in terms of research and science directly between Greenland and the US. In the past, scientists were somebody coming in the spring and then they left in the autumn, and we really didn't know what they were doing. Now there is you could say, a demand from the Greenland government that we should be involved and we should know what is actually going on. And but I think there is a great response from the American side, not only the Americans but generally among the scientists, that they would very much like to share their science and also to involve Greenlandic scientists in the activities.
Mm-hmm. So that I also wanted to ask you about. We came up recently that we had the issue of how people from Greenland want themselves to be referred to as. Is it Inuit? Is it Greenlander? Is it Galashisut? Is it what do you prefer?
I mean, our land, our country is called the land of the Garasli.
Yeah. But so when I say I talk to somebody from Greenland, I talk to a Greenlander, I talk to an Inuit, I talk to a Galashisut.
I think you talk to all of them because
okay.
the Greenlandic culture is an Inuit culture,
Mm-hmm.
which is connected to the Inuit culture of Canada and Alaska, all the way, and northeastern Siberia,
Right.
all the way from the Bering Strait to East Greenland. You have a common Inuit culture. The people in Greenland understands, people in Nuuk look at themselves as being Kereatlit, but also being Inuit.
Okay.
So I think it's both. You could say.
Okay.
It's not
because the term Greenland was some foreigners said we're going to call this place Greenland, and then the name stuck, and then you're stuck with it. Like our Native Americans here are get called Indians, but that really is not the term that's it relates to India. So, but you don't find the word Greenland not preferable.
It's not my impression that people are having a hard time being called Greenlanders.
Okay.
And it's not a term that, but of course, people call themselves Kereatlit. but also as a part, but also an Inuit.
Yeah.
Inuk, Gadader, Inuk, same thing. But
Yeah. All right.
you know, to be specific, when you're in Greenland, then you would probably say Gadader, meaning a Greenlander. You know.
Okay.
But you.
See, the trouble with Galaslit or Galashtasut is that in English-speaking people, we have trouble saying that.
Yeah. Okay.
Galashtasut, you know, it's
Yeah,
hard.
but I
it's hard
guess
to
you
say.
could Inuk person that's Inuit.
Yeah.
That can be used as well. But
All right.
I think the general thinking in Greenland is, you know, you start from your village.
Okay.
I mean, you could say that Raotomber, Narsomber, that tells you where I come from.
the town of Kalkaltal.
And then my region, I'm a Kavak, that's a southerner.
South. Okay. Yeah.
And then I'm a Gadader. And then I got Inuit ancestry.
Okay.
So so it's it's you are many things, you know.
All right.
But it's more the how should I put it, the context
Okay.
that we are talking in,
Yeah.
that makes you one or the other.
Right. When I talked to Paninguak Corneliusson, who came to the Delaware event this past October, this issue came up, and she preferred Inuit rather than Greenlander, but she also raised the point, which I think touches on what you're saying, is that, you know, she objected to us trying to say, you know, you have to give us a word to call you, you know, that standard, like this is what you have to do. So you're saying, well, you know, I'm many things. I'm from the town of Kalkaltat, from the south, you know, and which sort of pulls away from you can't say this is what I am. I am many things from many different places, and that's your context, rejecting my attempt to fit you into a box to say you have to do this. So I can appreciate that.
I think that, I guess anybody is like that, aren't we? Any person on this earth, you know, is you know, it depends on the and we are people as well.
Yeah.
Humans.
Yeah, that's true. So I want to talk about Greenland becoming its own full-fledged nation.
Yeah.
And that process started, 72, 73 with home rule, et cetera, et cetera. It's been a long process. So you're the one who knows every last detail of this, right?
I mean, Greenlanders have always thought of being a nation.
Mm-hmm.
This is not, something new. But you could say formally, Greenlanders hasn't been accepted as a people yet, because there is the individual person in Greenland are actually just Danish citizens. They are not.
Yeah.
Nobody is a Greenlander on paper. Everybody is
for an international basis.
Yes, and
okay,
internationally, you know, you don't have this designation of a Greenlander. You don't have it. So, but everybody knows that they're Greenlanders anyway. So it's not like that it's been given up. It's there. It's something informal. That it's formally you're not, but informally you are a Greenlander.
But in terms of being a single country and being completely independent from Denmark, that's on the horizon, right?
That's the final goal of the political majority in Greenland.
Okay.
Yes.
Now you would say that it's inevitable. That's going to happen sooner or later. Would that be correct to say?
That's the political goal. So that's what is being worked for, achieving. Right. But I would just like to go back to this Greenland, non-Greenlander thing.
Okay.
Before 1953. 1953 was an important year for Greenland. That was when Greenland became an integrated part of the Danish kingdom. Before 1953, Greenland was a colony of Denmark.
Yeah.
So you could say before 1953, it was very clear who was Greenlander and who wasn't. Because Greenlanders were not formally Danish citizens. They didn't have the constitutional right. My father didn't have his constitutional rights before after 1953. So the at that time you could distinguish formally between a Greenlander and a non-Greenlander. After 1953, there was this assimilation process where Greenlanders was going to be assimilated into the Danish society, the Danish kingdom, as Danish citizens, and probably that moved people away from being a Greenlander. Many people,
Okay.
but it's also created a lot of not so good things, to be honest, because people were losing their identity. People were becoming frustrated about that their culture was not appreciated the way that it should be, that any culture should be among the new setup, and so many Greenlanders had a tough time, and this is where we see many of the problems that we have and still have, and you see it among many indigenous cultures, especially here in North America, with social problems of different types, and that's very much to do with this removal from the original culture and the forced assimilation. That's actually what happened. So you could say, in a way, colonialism didn't stop when Greenland became an integrated part of the kingdom. When Greenland stopped being a colony, colonialism really didn't stop. So, and that's probably what led to the demand from the Greenland side to get home rule,
Okay.
to become autonomous, and this process that we are still having of getting more and more autonomy, and having this final political goal of becoming independent.
So what's left to be done?
What's left to be done to become independent?
Yeah.
Firstly, I would say that any nation, beside a very few ones, can't be totally on their own. You need to have some close allies, some countries that you work closely with, and that's of course the process that Greenland will be in the decades to come, about defining who we should work closely with. Because Greenland, being such a tiny nation in an enormous country, needs some good friends. So, yes, but basically what we are looking into is finding a way to make independence possible, but also to have the economic foundation for running the society, the community, the Greenlandic, the Greenland as such, to run it. Because right now we are depending partly on a block grant, a subsidy from the Danish government, which is important for our life. And we are in need of economic growth to not to have this dependency in the future as well, because that's an important part of it. That's to get a self-sustaining economy. We are on the path for that goal, but it's a long process. So that's very much to do with economic development.
All right. And so the economy, like the primary income at the moment is the trade with the seafood.
Yeah, that's 90%.
After that would be mining, and then would be tourism, or the other way around.
I'm not sure, but it's but seafood is definitely the most important part of our exports. Tourism are getting more and more important. Mining fluctuates. Within the last 50 years, some years mining has been much more important than other years. Yeah. So, but right now it's not that of major importance. But it goes up and down. But seafood is a staple part of the economy. And tourism is developing.
All right. And so I see that the 3 airports under construction will make tourism much more.
We have you have used the old American bases getting into Greenland.
Yeah.
That's Kangerlussuaq, which is the main port of entry to Greenland today. It's an old American-based base built during World War II and expanded during the Cold War. And then in the south, we have a seasonal gateway to South Greenland. In Narsarsuaq.
That's just seasonal?
It's as a gateway to get into the country.
Okay.
We will have the passenger planes from Copenhagen and the ones from Iceland, and it's only from June to end September that we're having them. So the rest of the year, everything is through Kangerlussuaq.
Okay.
But now we are building new airports in the coastal towns. I mean, as you're already referring, in Qaqortoq in the south, and then another 500 kilometers up the coast in our capital, Nuuk, another 500 kilometers up the coast in Ilulissat. So that's going to be a big change when they will be up running in the years to come.
And I imagine that the cost of coming to Greenland would be somewhat less because you don't have to take 2 flights to get to the nice towns.
And I guess it's also just the hassle of going through so many airports. And of course you are if you are going to let's say to Nuuk via Narsarsuaq or via Kangerlussuaq, then you are depending not only on the weather in Nuuk, but you're also depending on the weather in Narsarsuaq.
I've been stuck sometimes. When the weather was fine in Qaqortoq, but down in Narsarsuaq they said that's too foggy. You're not flying today.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So you will have just one leg, so to say.
And I would project that perhaps then we'll eventually have flights directly from the U.S. to Greenland.
Yes, I'm sure that's going to happen. Okay. And then the thing is, you will have the tourism in where people are living, not on these old, in the middle of nowhere bases. Yeah. To some extent, in the middle of nowhere. There is some beautiful scenery in Kangerlussuaq and Narsarsuaq, and I'm sure those two former main airports are not going to lose their importance. I mean, they will still be attractive as places to visit for tourists, I'm sure.
Yeah. Right.
But the main bulk of tourism will probably be within the coastal towns, and I guess that's where you have people that can develop the tourism. You need people to work in a hotel or as a bus driver or boat driver, so it's easier to develop a new industry where people is actually living.
Yeah. All right. So I want to consider the overall ramifications of Greenland becoming a full country, in that this would be, unless I'm mistaken, the first time since colonization for the entire American continent, north and south, that indigenous people will have their own country. And we have Haiti was a country, but that was a slave revolt. It wasn't indigenous people. Iceland became a country just from Denmark, getting independence from Denmark. But Iceland doesn't have any indigenous people. It was all Norse people.
It's not a European country. It's a European country.
Okay.
Greenland is not a European.
But this is, so this is a momentous occasion for all indigenous people on the whole continent. For a country to actually be controlled by the indigenous people.
And already Greenland is autonomous. It has a high degree of autonomy.
Yeah.
So I guess we can already celebrate a bit.
All right. Yeah. So I'm thinking about how that manifests itself. In that, what has the Danish system what parts of the Danish system are objectionable, and once they're gone, the Greenlanders will do a different way. And I'm thinking to myself, what we know from history about in America, the way the land was taken from the indigenous peoples, because the indigenous people didn't really know what it meant to own land. You want to buy my land? Oh, you give me $10. All right, well, whatever that means, I'll sign this piece of paper. But and I know that in Greenland you don't really have ownership of land. That's already been set up that way, right?
Yeah, that's correct. You get a right to use the land. So if I'm going to build a house, then I have to apply for a plot, and then I'm giving the right to use that piece of land for building a house of a certain type of house, certain style, certain size, and so on. And the same if I'm a southerner, as you know. I'm
Okay.
I'm from southern Greenland, and we have agriculture. We are partly farmers, and if you're going to make a new field, you can apply for land, and then you can cultivate, but you're not going to own it. You can't sell it, but you can cultivate it. And then you get you could call it a free lease. That's what you're getting. But if you don't use it, if I just have this idea of making a potato field in the middle of nowhere, I'm granted this piece of land, a few acres, and I don't use it. If I don't use it for 3 years, then somebody else can apply for that piece of land and say, I think I'll do that potato field, and then I just have to accept it.
So how did that come about that way? With Denmark in control of things.
I think the reason why we still have that system is, yes, due to the Inuit thinking, but also due to a monopoly. The Danish government owned everything in Greenland.
Okay.
Up to 1953. Up to 1953, we had a monopoly. Everything was controlled by the Danish government. So all trade, everything was controlled everything has to go through the Danish government. Greenland was a big business, you could say, where originally, back in the 1700s, when the Danes and the Norwegians came to colonize Greenland, then they were in conflict with the Dutchmen and the Brits and so on for whaling, and they wanted to control everything in Greenland. They wanted their full share of the oil from the sea mammals. So they made a monopoly, excluding everybody else except representatives of the Danish king. And this monopoly in Greenland continued up till after World War II. And I guess that's a part of the reason, because they didn't give up resources or land for private purposes.
Right.
So that's probably.
I can see in the U.S. in America, we had Spain had some stuff and England had some stuff, and so they some stuff was sold from here. Louisiana purchased that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. When you had two people fighting for stuff, having ownership makes more sense to say, okay, I'm going to buy this from you, and the indigenous people just get left out in the cold. Actually, you didn't have that.
But there is one little interesting thing. That's about these small creeks or rivers for Arctic char fishing, because there was some ownership in the Greenland Inuit culture about Arctic char streams, creeks, rivers, okay, where you had some right to. My family has the right for this river. All so right. There was, but it was quite limited, you could say. So okay. I think the monopoly system somehow fit very well into the Greenlandic original right. system. Mm-hmm. So even when the first farmers I mean, that's all the way back in the 1700s got established. It was a Norwegian guy together with his Greenland Inuit wife who established themselves as the first farmers. They just farmed the land. They didn't. They wasn't given some kind of a piece of paper. So we never ever formalized ownership of land, and in a way it's a good thing.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, I'm fascinated to watch how things work out with indigenous people controlling everything. That'll be interesting to see. It raises to me questions of like the criminal justice system.
You have a special legislation for Greenland. So we have other laws than
different from Danish laws.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And also our court systems are different. The local courts, I mean, High Court is the Supreme Court is Danish totally, but the local courts are. It used to be lay judges only, but these years there is a development towards having educated judges.
You say lay judges, someone who's not hired there to be that, they just volunteer for that?
I have been a lay judge.
Okay.
And that's kind of a community duty you do.
Like jury duty?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
But the thing is, now we are moving towards, a much more complicated, complex community, society, and therefore we need people with more knowledge into law, and therefore they have been giving much better education than what used to be the case. There's a interesting development there in Greenland, and we also having our own lawyers being trained, educated at the University of Greenland. So I mean, and I guess it's all due to complexity. Our country is getting more and more complex. There's so much things to look into, so much knowledge needed in terms of judicial processes and so on.
All right. Tell me about the seafood. And who are the main trading partners? Who's buying it? And what is it? It's shrimp and cod mostly.
Yeah, and Greenland halibut.
Halibut.
Yeah, and some herring, some mackerel.
Herring of the little amasut.
No, it's herring.
Bigger.
Herring is actually called amasut, which means the big amasut.
But the amasut, I love those. That's a little like Cape. They're like little sardine kind of size things. Yeah. Dried. Those are very good.
Yeah, it is.
So who is that mostly going to Denmark, or who else is buying that?
I mean, the fish goes to Denmark, and then it goes. A lot of it actually goes to the Far East.
Oh, yeah?
To China, to Japan, to
through Denmark.
Through Denmark,
okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
But would that change with full independence, or doesn't?
I guess it's a question of who is demanding our products, and right now, I mean, you go for the good prices and the ones who are willing to buy a lot to a high price. I mean, I don't think we are different from anybody else in that term. So, but we're also seeing a growing American market for Greenlandic products.
Okay.
But it has to, as the situation is today, it has to cross the Atlantic twice to get to the.
It goes to Denmark, then it comes to the U.S.
Yes,
side.
Yeah. So hopefully that will change in the future.
All right, yeah, direct. All right. There's a history from the 70s that brought in this country us the Marine Mammal Protection Act.
Yeah.
So we can't buy any marine mammal products. We can't bring any into this country. So we can't get any seal meat or any sealskin clothing or anything like that in this country. And the older Greenlanders I've met are still a little bit bitter about that. The guys who can remember how it was before that, there was, and then that really had a bad effect on the market for all those things.
Yeah, the many villages, subsistence villages, were simply having economy devastated.
Yeah.
And that was very tragic, what happened.
With seals, generally, the seal meat was consumed in Greenland,
Yeah.
and the pelts were sold for...
For good money.
Yeah. I say that sitting on a sealskin chair upholstery here,
and that's
that you were allowed to bring into this country because you're a diplomat and you have that privilege.
Yeah.
It's very nice material.
It's an organic product.
Yeah.
It's totally sustainable.
Yeah.
We talk about around Greenland there is around 10 to 12 million seals. We are harvesting around 100,000. So it's a very, very little portion of the total population of seals that we are actually harvesting. So it's totally sustainable, and we are not polluting. By using a sealskin product, you are not going to get more micro plastics into the food chain. This is a totally sustainable and organic product. You can't get more, and you can't get more friendly to nature.
Yeah.
You could say.
I understand that.
And
a sealskin duelik for kayaking.
Yeah.
That's like the sealskin actually, it breathes. It's a breathable material, I've been told, which is, Gore-Tex is an environmental disaster. It's a fossil fuel product when you use artificial fabrics like that. So there's some advantages there. But so I once looked at what it would take to repeal the Marine Mammal Protection Act, and decided that even though I'm situated near Washington, D.C., I'm not a lobbyist, and that would involve years and years of doing the whole lobbying thing. It's not for me to take on that task. But it's, political winds change, and it's not impossible at some point in the future where that could change.
I can tell you that the same kind of legislation like the Seaman Protection Act came in Europe, in the European Union.
Okay.
But finally the European Union decided to make an exception for indigenous communities hunting.
Okay.
So you can actually import without any hassle
to the EU.
To the EU, sealskin products from Greenland today. There was a period where you couldn't, but then they decided this is a little bit silly. We better open, because this is totally sustainable. So the European Union decided to open. Yeah. So today you can buy sealskin from traditional indigenous hunting from Canada and Greenland in the EU.
Okay.
So I guess there might be some inspiration for.
Well, if the cause was taken up and it reached the popular appeal, my understanding there was the clubbing baby seals issue, which all took place in Canada, that started that whole campaign back in the 70s that got people all upset about it and got that law passed. But what upset the Greenlanders that I've talked to is that they weren't clubbing any baby seals in Greenland, but they got kind of blamed for it.
The Greenlandic hunters are extremely efficient hunters. Mm. And as you rightly say, they only hunt the adult seals, and they are sharpshooters like anything.
Yeah.
They kill them in one shot. Yeah. And it's just as, how should I put it? It's just as, or maybe even more humane as in arbitrary, in like here.
With cattle and chickens and
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they have lived a good life. These guys who gets killed,
Yeah.
you know.
You know, I can see an argument
And
can
then
certainly be made.
and then of course you need some hunting. You need you need predators, and we humans are predators. That's a part of our role, as I see it.
Yeah.
And to regulate the population, if we don't regulate, I mean, if we don't take out some of the stock, then it will degrade. I mean, they will be much more attacked by all kinds of diseases and so on, because the population becomes too dense.
Yeah.
And so the Greenland hunters are keeping the seals in Greenland healthy by hunting them.
Mm. Yeah. Tell me about climate change. What that means for you, what that means for Greenland from the Greenlanders' perspective.
Well, it's a change. Firstly, it is happening. I'm not a scientist. I don't want to discuss the reasons for this, but I can only say what is happening.
Yeah.
We are seeing a steady increase in temperature. It's getting warmer for every decade.
Yeah.
It's getting a little bit warmer, and it's changing the life in the sea. We see that, like when I was a kid, back in the 1970s, mackerel was something in a tin can.
Okay.
Today we can fish mackerel in Greenland waters. The cod is very stable now in Greenland. It used to be unstable because it was just at the, very close to where cod was able to survive. It was too cold often, but you don't see it now. Now you have cod very far north. You see the shrimp, the cold water shrimp. Greenland shrimp is actually moving northward. So. And new fish species are coming into our waters slowly. You see a longer growing season. The snow is melting a few weeks earlier than when I was a kid, and it's coming a few weeks later in the autumn. The snow. So you see these changes, and then of course it's very, very easy to see the retreat of the ice cap, especially where I come from in South Greenland, because that's the warmest part of Greenland, and it doesn't take much to change the equilibrium. So you see, it can be kilometers, where the ice cap has retreated within the last decades. And that's quite something to see. And you can even see it within a season. If you come to a glacier, let's say in June, and then you come back in beginning of September, you can actually see that it has retreated during those few months. So it's quite something. And it's sometimes if you stay away from a glacier for a few years and then you come back and you get a little bit depressed, or you get a little bit anxious, how rapidly this is happening. And of course, this is going to have a global impact, because you will see, because of this melting, you will see lowland areas like Florida, like the Netherlands and Bangladesh and so on, will be flooded eventually.
Yeah.
That's the consequence that we will see. It is melting, no doubt.
So most of what you just told me for Greenland is not like, some of that's almost a benefit. More fish coming into certain places.
Yeah, but still you have to change the livelihoods as well.
Yeah.
And that's of course like but it also brings more storms and more unstable waters. So that's not very good.
Okay.
So there's always a flip side of the coin. But you could say that, of course, it would be also very difficult if the climate got colder. So any change is a challenge. I would say any change is a challenge.
Yeah. So in this country, in the U.S., when climate change is mentioned, it to me it sounds more. It's like it's a result of our way of life, really. Of heavy consumption and putting all this, carbon into the atmosphere, et cetera. Whereas in other places, it seems it's more like just an imposition. Like, here's another thing that you're going to have to deal with that came from somewhere else. And so I think it makes us uncomfortable to hear about it because we feel like we caused some of it, and so it's telling us we need to do something about it. But I don't know that in Greenland you feel that way. It's like, well, this is another thing happening from the outside world, and we'll figure out what to do with it.
I think the Inuit culture of Greenland has always been extremely adaptable.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, absolutely.
The Inuit going into Greenland, the gateway to Greenland for the Inuit people were the Avanasua, the northernmost part of Greenland, where you have Qaanaaq up in the north. And they came there in a high Arctic environment, very much depending on the dog sledge, to some extent also the kayak. But so they brought both the dog sledge and the kayak into northernmost Greenland. And the Umiaq, the women's boat. So that was the main three means of transportation. Then they went down along the Greenland coast. And when they went down around below the Arctic Circle, they didn't bother to carry on the dog sledge. Because suddenly the kayak was much more important as a mean of transportation. So they perfected the kayak instead, and made that the kayak that you are using, this fantastic piece of technology, which it is, and adapted it to the North Atlantic, to harsh high seas and stormy weather and up north in Qaanaaq. They more or less gave up the kayak because they extremely practical people. And when they went down to South Greenland, and I spoke about this Norwegian guy. His name was Anders Olsen, one of my ancestors actually, and his wife Dubside. They settled there in the 1700s. Their neighbors started to have a look at these cows and goats that they were having and started, that looks like something we can use as well. And suddenly people were combining having a life as a seal hunter in a kayak together with having a few goats. So I just see Greenlandic culture as extremely adaptable and willing to change according to the conditions that nature provides.
That's what makes it so fascinating to me to see what will be a new country of people who are extremely resourceful and can improvise and get their way. Whatever the conditions are, like something, we'll figure something out. That's the Inuit mindset. Yeah. And so in that situation, it's to have climate change as another thing to just, we'll work this out.
There is a term called Gadashisorlu.
Okay.
Gadashisorlu. Do it the Greenlandic way.
Wow.
And that's to find a solution right now.
Yeah.
And it's about, now we should survive. Now we have to find a solution. We'll find one. Gadashisorlu. and it might not be extremely fancy, but it works.
Yeah. I from going to the competition so many times, the sort of, you know, the Western American style of long-term planning. Let's figure this out. We're going to do this, and then this is going to happen. This is going to happen. This is going to happen, and it just doesn't work in Greenland. Because the more you plan in advance, the more you're just going to have to change it when things change around. So you just, the improvisational thing, that's the real strong point.
Yes, because nature is such a demanding thing.
Particularly, in Greenland especially.
And weather and everything is so demanding. So you that's right, you have to have a plan A, B, C, D, E, and so on.
Yeah. Or just not make up plans. Say, we'll figure it out. We'll wait till it happens, and we'll get it figured out. Yeah. So, in this country, so we have this big kayak community, people interested in Greenland kayaking. We've had this for a long time. We've built Greenland kayaks, and some of us have gone to Greenland. We've read about Greenland. We've done research things about Greenland and surveyed kayaks, et cetera, et cetera. And then we have people just enjoy the Greenland paddle, and so we are. I'm looking to sort of interface more with what you're doing as far as the cultural awareness and you know, how do you see us able to more interact?
Well, as I already said, I'm so happy for the enthusiasm and the love of Greenland culture and this particular Greenlandic technology called the kayak. How you work with it is amazing, and I just want to say whatever you do, we will try as best as we can to support. I'm not going to be a kayak enthusiast myself. I'm probably too old for that. I'll leave that to my kids. But I'm willing to, and I'm sure the institution that I represent is willing to support you as good as we can. Right. We are more than happy to welcome you in Greenland as well as guests.
Okay.
And so and that'll be great if you can, go to Greenland not only for the kayak events but any time. You can also go on kayaking yourself around the fjords. Having holidays, not only just for these events, I mean the particular events, but also just to enjoy life.
Yeah.
So Greenland is a very good country for traveling in kayak. The fjords, South Greenland, that's amazing. Just to go. From town to town and from village to village in kayak. It's already been done. People are doing that already.
Yeah, well, with flights directly to Greenland eventually at the new airports and things, that will make it even more feasible for us to do that. Yeah. You had said that you haven't kayaked and you're not really a kayaker per se.
No.
And I think my analogy is accurate in that the one I've used for a long time, that in this country the cowboy culture of the West is a big part of our heritage, but very few of us actually do any of those things. We're just glad that somebody else does it. And so in Greenland, the average Greenlander has not been in a kayak, certainly knows all about it and respects it and treasures it, but is not interested in themselves.
And we when the competitions is in our towns, we will go and watch it and cheer them up. And I mean, especially the kids when they are competing, it's amazing to watch.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, I've enjoyed very much going there and helping in my own way to make it happen.
And this year you're going to Greenland, huh? Next year.
Next year, 2024. I'm planning on it. I will see if it works out. It's looking good. Yeah.
And you're going to
Talk, yeah. Before we close, do you have anything you would like to say to the membership of Kayak USA or the listenership of the Dubscast with Dubside? I've got a lot of people in Denmark, I believe, listen to this. There's people all over the world here and there listening to it. But do you have any message?
Yeah, I want to salute you guys for what you do, and and all the efforts you are having in making Greenlandic culture and the idea of Greenland, and that it's not only just a chunk of ice, that is actually, you know, a culture and a people and a history and you know, even some extremely fascinating technology that has been developed there, that you are making those kind of information available for people in the US. That's fantastic, and please continue the good work.
All right, we'll do what we can. Goyanok.
Yeah, so.
And that is Kenneth Høegh. His last name is spelled H-O with a line diagonally through it, E-G-H. It's a different O from what we have in the English language. And Kenneth is the Greenland's Minister Plenipotentiary. I recorded this interview on November 27th, 2023, in his office located in the Danish Embassy in Washington, D.C.